Hello and welcome everyone to this second budget work session for the South Kingstown Town Council. The date is Tuesday, March 5th. The time is 6:30. Our first order of business is the pledge to the flag. Please rise and join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And tonight we've got a few more departments to look over. I'll just turn it over to, do we want to go straight to Terry, or do you want to say any opening words, Rob?
What's the appetite of the council tonight? We can do a broad overview. We can do a broad overview and some discussion of goals and objectives, things that we've achieved over the last year, a little bit of a sense of the program for new members, and then we can do the numbers and the department, or we can do it any way the council would like, honestly. We got all sorts of options.
Make that executive decision.
Well, I like that sound of accomplishments. So, yeah, give us sort of the quick rundown of
I say it,
accomplishments.
And the computer freezes up.
I mean, we can just go, and the rec department has a lot of great achievements that we can talk about.
This is awesome.
It's coming in 2020.
We are going to give up on this in just a second. This out real quick.
Maybe we can.
I think we've got it.
Okay.
All right. Good. So just a reminder, this is the second of our budget workshops. So we are moving down the schedule. I did have an eagle-eyed witness or observer last night indicated that the final budget adoption notation in this table last night indicated that the 29th was a regular council session. It's not, but adoption is scheduled on the 29th, not the 22nd, which is the regular meeting. The reason for that is because of the timing for petitions for a referendum. We can't have the adoption the same night as the petitions would be due in, which is the 22nd. Right. So, as we've discussed previously, the whole budget process and really the whole program throughout the year is built around the goals and objectives that the council sets, and this budget process is part of the opportunity, one of the main opportunities we have throughout the year to discuss the goals and objectives. I wanted to just pull some of these out. There are, as I've indicated, I think last night, 40 some odd goals, and there are over 100 objectives that are identified with various programs in the budget. I'm not going to go through 100 tonight. These are the three that deal with the provision of core services and facilities. We will have an opportunity over the course of the budget process to review these, and as you see them, if there are things that you'd like to do to tighten them up, I'd be delighted to talk to you about that, because I think there are some things we can do here that might improve our focus as we go forward with some of these goals. The objectives associated with the provision of core services, at least the ones that are relevant to the Department of Public Services and the Recreation Department, are these. We are doing that right now. Look at that. Success. John will talk tonight some about the Matunic Beach Road project. That project has been designed. Permit applications were submitted, I believe, on Friday of last week. Is that right? Tomorrow, all right. Close, close. But I think we can check that one off. We've achieved it. The streetlight program, as we've discussed in recent weeks, is sort of on pause as the state sort of works through where it's going to draw its responsibility and liability. But for all intents and purposes, the contract has been let, and we have succeeded in achieving that objective. Complete construction of the recreation community is still hanging there from a couple of years ago. That is an objective that has been achieved, and we'll be able to take off the list and put on a different list of accomplishments that we'll maintain. Well done. The hazard mitigation plan, largely driven by the Department of Public Services and the Planning Department, but that plan was not only initiated but was completed. It is now, as you know, before the state and federal agencies for approval. So we've accomplished those goals, or those objectives. Keep wanting to do that. With regard to circulation or traffic safety, there are a number of goals and objectives. I think that this is one of the areas that the council may have some ideas on what we can do to sort of change our focus a bit here. Very, very much about coordinating with RIDOT. And John and his folks maintain a really good working relationship, much to our benefit, with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, as the recent Silver Lake Bridge incident indicates. But still, coordination and cooperation are not quite the kinds of tight, measurable objectives that we're looking for as we move forward. The incorporation of design features like, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up here. Design features like those that were identified during the Healthy Places, Healthy Design, has been very much at the forefront of the discussion around DOT's early work over on Old Tower Hill Road. So I think that this is a guiding principle that is alive and well, but again, not really so much an objective. And as we get into the discussion, I think there may be a chance for us to sort of identify measurable outcomes that we can tie to that objective. Designation of Route 1 as a scenic roadway has been accomplished. The promotion of the senior transportation system has been accomplished. It's an ongoing effort, of course, but it has been accomplished. Post-storm snow clearing policies, the council last spring and early summer had public hearings, and we have changed the way that this work is being done. We've sort of refocused the town workforce's efforts on the roads. We've enlisted the assistance of citizens to take care of the sidewalks. It was a very light winter for us, so I'm not quite ready to declare complete success with the new snow removal program with regard to the sidewalks. But I will say that South Kingstown residents have stepped up, and the program has succeeded in large part. There are more sidewalks cleared than we used to see in the past, and we have been able to keep our town employees on the road and focused on making sure that the streets are safe. There are some places where we still need to remind folks that they have an obligation to clear the snow, and we'll be doing some of that after this most recent snowstorm this week and next week. A couple of real quick statistics that I think are interesting and worth keeping in mind as you hear from Terry and John tonight. We have a large presence of park sites here in town, and that's really a matter of great importance because it adds to and is in many ways the quality of life that people in South Kingstown enjoy. We'll come to a slide in a minute that has Terry's acreage take on this, but Terry, it's 425 acres that are managed by Terry's folks, and the ratio of employees to acreage is 1 to 53 acres. So there's a lot of work for each of those employees. Yeah, you leave some of them to nature, but nonetheless. Performance measures for John's shop, just a few of the measures of how busy the highway department is. These are 17-18 measures, but they're very representative of the type of work and the workload that gets done. Note the road miles, 7 miles of road crack sealed, 5 miles of road stone sealed, 3 miles repaved, 19 graded, and 33 restriped in 17. 163 miles of roadway that were snowplowed 15 times in 17-18. Moving very quickly to solid waste and some interesting, I think, really good news stories. The total municipal waste is actually down from the year before in 17-18, and this number right over here on the hazardous waste, 18,418 pounds of solid waste that were diverted from landfills and not poured down somebody's drain. That's a success right there. 31,000 pounds of e-waste collected. That's been a successful program and one that I think that we all benefit from because, again, it's not waste going into landfills. Very quickly, screenshot of some of the measures reported in the annual report, again for 17-18, for Terry's programs. 943 programs run. 89% of those offered are actually run. That's a pretty impressive statistic in itself. 425 acres of parkland, and 1,698 music lessons offered. These are really interesting programs. They're programs that provide safety for folks throughout town and provide entertainment and recreational activities to the entire community. Great programs, and I think that those who are the beneficiaries would say bargain programs as well. So with that, I'm going to shut this down and let Trish run us through the numbers, and then we'll go on and hear first from Terry and then from John.
Going to give a brief overview of the Recreation Department, Leisure Services, which includes Peacedale Office Building, Senior Services, and the Neighborhood Guild, as well as the Community Recreation Fund. And then when I'm done with just a brief overview, Terry, I'm going to hand it over to Terry, and she's going to talk more programmatically about her funds. So within the general fund, there's the Parks and Rec Division. The amount of property tax support associated with running this program is $1,260,000. Proposed, the expenditure budget is proposed at $1,943,000, which is an increase of $106,000 over the current year. Wages are up 5.5%, which is attributed to the first full year of funding of a park maintenance technician and associated contractual obligations. Benefits are up 17.2%, again, the same contractual obligations and the first year full funding. And services are up 3.4%. Parks and Rec generates their own revenues. This year, the revenues are $682,826, an increase of $12,000 over the current year. Peacedale Office Building is a special revenue fund. They are not supported by tax dollars. The proposed expenditure budget has an overall increase of 1.2%, which includes 4%. Wages are up 4.9%. These are just contractual obligations. Benefits are up they're decreased by 7.4%. Services are up 2.1%. The proposed budgeted revenues are $94,901, and this is a slight increase of $1,142 over the current year. This program is self-supported mainly by rental income within that building. Senior Services funds, their tax support this year is $451,000, which is an increase of $18,274. The proposed expenditure budget increase is up 6.7%. Wages are up 8.7%. Again, contractual obligations. We have a reclassification of the Community Elder Information Specialist from a grade 3 to a grade 5, and a new part-time receptionist. Benefits are up 3.8%, and a slight increase in services and commodities within this fund. The proposed budgeted revenues are $953,000, which is an increase of $60,000. Included in this increase is $18,000 increase in tax support. There are also increases in the state subsidy reimbursement, client payments, and our participating community cost shares. That increase is $12,650. That comes from Narragansett and North Kingstown. The Neighborhood Guild does not receive any tax support. Budgeted expenditures increase is 0.43%, which is accounts for 2.8% in increase in wages, which is offset by a decrease in benefits of 3.1%. The proposed budgeted revenues are $780,000, a small increase of $3,365 over the current year. The trust income contribution from the Neighborhood Guild trust funds is $414,000, which is an increase of $14,000 over the current year. There is a small decrease offsetting this increase in program revenue for the Neighborhood Guild. The Community Recreation Center receives tax support of $325,000, which is an increase of $10,000 over the current year. The proposed expenditure budget is up 9.35%. That's including That's comprised of a decrease in wages due to the elimination of employing seasonal referees, and there's a savings in FICA. Benefits are increasing 10.8%, mainly attributed to workers' compensation insurance, which was actually under budgeted in 2019. And the services are up 46.6%, but that has to do with retaining contractual services for referees and an increase in the utility costs. The proposed budgeted revenue for 2020 is $502,736, which is an increase of $42,973 over the current year. And now I'm going to turn it over to Terry so she can speak more in detail about her program. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to give you a little bit of background on all of our programs. For the general fund, before I get into the general fund accounts, the slide you're looking at now is an illustration of essentially the four funds that the Parks and Recreation Department oversees: Peacedale Office Building, the Guild, the Rec Center, and the general fund. As Trish mentioned, the Guild and the Peacedale Office Building do not require any tax support. However, both are used in recreational programming. We use the Peacedale Office Building for a variety of programs on the third floor and also on the basement level of the building. So this slide is really just illustrating that combined, all four of these funds, we're looking at under 50% tax support for the entire Parks and Recreation programming. Clearly, you can slice and dice the numbers many different ways, but I think it illustrates the value of the tax dollar in terms of the programs that are offered under these four funds. This is just another illustration of the 6 cost centers within the general fund accounts. Total budget $1.943 million. And again, Trish went over the projected revenue offset of $682,000 and requiring tax support of about $1.2 million. You'll notice also that the park maintenance is over half of the total budget. For the administration cost center, this is supports staff, 2.9 full-time employees. We have a 2.8% increase in salaries and benefits. We have a minor increase in our educational expenditure for next year. We are seeking to send some staff to an NRPA, National Recreation Park Association conference. Our staff is nationally certified. We have 4 certified Parks and Recreation professionals that require continuing education credits, and the conference is in Baltimore, which is the closest it's been, making it more affordable than most of the other locations in previous years. So we've increased the educational expense line by $300. And we have a 20% increase in professional services. Part of that is due to planning to move the data management software, which we use, to the cloud. The parks budget, again, this is our largest budget in the general fund account. We see an 8.6% increase in the total budget. Salary and benefits support 8.95 full-time employees. Those are all of our park maintenance technicians, our park superintendent, and our foreman. We do have the new full-time position that started mid-year this year, being fully funded for 1920. And in a nutshell, most of you are already aware that the Parks Division staff has taken on incrementally over the last several years additional responsibilities in terms of the Main Street Comfort Station, Saugatucket Riverwalk, the cost of operating the Main Street car charging stations is part of this budget, all of the ag supplies that are required to maintain all of the ball fields and the dog park. So it's money well spent. I think it's a good value for the work we're getting year-round out of the Parks Division. Next, we have our athletics budget. This is a 2.8% increase over the current year, and it supports 40% of our athletic supervisor position, salary and benefits. And it includes tennis, softball, camps. Most of these are youth programs. And when we do this budget, we drill down to the individual programs and basically estimate what our budget will be based on our actuals for this year and the previous years. And it generates revenue to offset other program areas, such as community programs. So the next slide, you'll see, it's a little bit difficult to read, but this particular slide basically illustrates the detail of the various programs. So we've got camps and classes. Those are summer camps, athletic camps, the flag football program, tennis, softball. Softball is one of the only adult programs listed here. Wiffle ball, track, women's basketball. So we go through the exercise of establishing a budget for each and every program to come up with what is a pretty accurate accounting of what we see will take place in the next year. And you'll see the balance. The athletics budget ends with on the plus side of $35,000, but you'll see how it helps to offset community programs through leisure services. The aquatics budget, this is the town beach operation. This has increased by almost 10%. It's basically a seasonal salaries increase, and the last couple of years we struggled to maintain staffing levels because we were competing with state beaches and neighboring communities. So this current year we bumped our seasonal salary levels up in order to compete, and actually the beach season went very well. We had full staff. We're hoping for that this coming season as well. We are also opening a full week before Memorial Day full-time, which increases our opportunity for revenue. We're looking at about a 6.4% increase in beach revenue, again, because of additional operating hours. We're not proposing any increase in the seasonal or day passes for the beach operation. The Rec Commission actually has to approve any recommendations before they make it to the council. That'll be in mid to late March, where the council will see what the recommendations are. But one of the proposed changes is for cottage passes to be converted to transferable passes at a higher rate. We'll see how that goes. I'm not sure if the commission will support that or not, but we noticed that there was a higher interest in the cottage passes this year rather than a season pass, and the benefit is that it can be used by multiple folks rather than a sticker on a car that only a single family can use. We've got our leisure services budget. This is our mainly our community programs, major events. The 4th of July is covered in this budget. Our Discovery Camp program, which is the department-run summer camp program, family events, and nature center classes. We're anticipating an 11% decrease in the total budget. We are seeing less registrations for our Discovery Camp program. That's not for lack of interest in camp programs. It's just we offer a lot of other options, and so some of those are coming out of the guild, and some of those are coming out of the rec center budget, or the athletics budget. So we're seeing a decrease, and we're decreasing the staffing accordingly. And what you see here is that this is another detail report for the Leisure Services Fund, and you can see the types of programs that we budget for. The 4th of July, which is really the major expenditure in this entire budget. Discovery Camp, Easter programs, the Easter egg hunt, the Kids Zone, the Oktoberfest Kids Zone, Pumpkin Launch, Earth Day, Nature Center, and then general community recreation programs. Again, we drill down to the actual programmatic level to give an accurate estimate of what we see for the coming year. And you'll see that 4th of July is really the one that requires the bulk of the support there. Creative Activities is our Stepping Stone Preschool. And that is for 3 and 4-year-olds. It's a half-day program. We are increasing for this next year from 2 to 3 days for 3-year-olds to attend. And this budget also supports preschool recreational programs like Safety First. I think that's the one that most of the community knows because everybody has sent their children to the Safety First program. We're projecting a 1.8% increase in the total budget. We are also proposing an increase in the monthly tuition from $225 to $240. The program is licensed by DCYF. We have been asked the question in the past about a full-day pre-K program, and it is not an option due to the facility limitations. We are not licensed by the Department of Education. We are licensed by DCYF, and the building, because of its age, has some accessibility limitations. Are there any questions on the general fund? Okay, on to Peacedale Office Building. Just generally speaking, I think Trish went over this as a relatively small budget, but PDOB, for short, it really is an extension, or was partially an extension of the Guild in terms of allowing for extra recreational space when we needed it before we had a recreation center. We still utilize the space. We have a very active art program in the basement of the building. We also have activities that run on the 3rd floor level of the building, but for the most part, it is leased space to local businesses. We manage the rentals and the day-to-day and long-term maintenance of the building is managed by the department. So as Trish said, it's self-supporting, 1% increase. Right now it's at 93% occupancy. We have 2 small units that are not being rented at the moment. We are, that's on the goals list to try to get those rented. They're small 240 square foot office spaces on the 2nd level. We do have 4 leases that are due for renewal in 2020. Generally speaking, those are 5-year lease terms. The budget funds about 3/4 of a full-time employee. We use building maintenance folks to maintain the building, and our parks superintendent oversees the general maintenance of the building. We do have a slight increase projected for our program revenue, and that is reflects rental of a 3rd floor exercise studio to third-party programs. So we're trying to maximize our space and our revenue. This is just directly from the budget document. It just basically shows the budget at $94,901 with it. That's an $1,100 increase over the current year. Any questions on Peacedale Office Building? Tricia's really she's moving those slides quickly. Okay, we have Senior Services. If I could call Sue DeMasi, our Senior Services Director, up to help us go through the senior budget. This one has some interesting formulas for budgeting. So essentially, the senior budget has 4 cost centers. We have transportation, nutrition, adult day services, and the senior center program operation. We've got a 6.7% total proposed increase over the current year. As Trish mentioned, this budget is supported by cost share communities, Narragansett, who supports the nutrition program and the senior center program and the daycare program, and North Kingstown supports the daycare program. We also have significant funding through state and federal grants and third-party and direct pay for our adult day services program. So the total budget is $953,000. You can see that the two biggest expenditures are our adult day program and the senior center operation. Transportation is the least expensive of all the programs, so we'll move through these one by one. Before we get to those, last night Rob had mentioned the increase in the overall percentages relative to seniors in the community. This slide basically illustrates what Rob mentioned last night. And over a 3-year period, you can see where the membership activity is projected to be up by 15% at the end of this year. Total membership, which includes folks from outside of the town, is projected to be up by almost 17%. Information and referral is our community information specialist. That one's interesting because we see an increase there, and it will continue to grow because we have many pre-retirees and recent retirees who we've seen a spike in the activity of appointments with our community information specialists in terms of information on Medicare and open enrollment, Medicare Part D, those types of things where she's kept very busy. You'll notice meals served is a declining number, and that's not surprising. The Congregate Meal Program, which is federally funded, is going through kind of a shift, if you will, because it doesn't really focus, or it doesn't appeal to the 60 to 70-somethings who are coming in to the center for other reasons like programming, wellness activities, but we still view it as a critical need because it services probably the average age. I'm guessing Sue is probably 80, 85. So we need the meal program. It's for some it's their only balanced meal of the day. So that's just to give you a little frame of reference of where we stand statistically. And there's plenty of statistics in the budget document.
Excuse me, Terry. When it comes to cost sharing with, say, Narragansett and North Kingstown, do you feel the cost sharing is fair and reasonable, or how do you feel about that?
So the cost sharing we'll start with Narragansett, with the nutrition program is based on the actual number of meals that are served. So we have those numbers. People who come to lunch have to sign up. We know where they're from, and we apply the budget figure for the town of Narragansett based on how many meals we've served to Narragansett residents. So that's a direct, and it's approximately 30%. I don't have that right in front of me, but it's a 70-30 split, just about. For the daycare with Narragansett and North Kingstown, that too is directly related to how many service days we provide to their residents. So the calculation is a formula that basically says, okay, there were X amount of Narragansett residents that we served. We provided 800 days of service. Here's the net that we have to support the program by. So Narragansett has that much to contribute. We base it on the previous year's activity because we don't know how many Narragansett residents we're going to have in the future, but we calculate kind of in arrears, so to speak, for Narragansett and North Kingstown. And then the other piece of it is the town of Narragansett with the senior center operation. And historically, we've kept it it's not a full share of what, based on our membership numbers for the town of Narragansett, it's at about 55% of what, if we took the entire budget for operating the senior center, which is 360 some odd thousand, that would not equal their full percentage. What I would say about that is it's difficult. There are folks who come into the senior center that are not members, that are not signed up. We do not require that, so there's a little bit of a margin of error in terms of what we can really calculate is the accurate number of Narragansett residents versus South Kingstown residents. So we've upped it. 2 years ago, we increased it from 50% of what the total cost share would be for Narragansett to, I believe it's at 55% now for the town of Narragansett. So,
So when you say 50 to 55% of what it would be, so if their true cost was 100, you're saying they're reimbursing at 55,000? I mean, 100,000. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And in the budget document, there is a breakout that will show senior center program cost. So after all grants and other funding, the net cost for the senior center operation is $291,000. If we were to look at 100% of Narragansett's cost share, it would be $92,400. We are proposing $55,000 as a contribution, and South Kingstown is carrying the rest, which is $236,040. Okay. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to Sue. She's going to go through the just a little bit of a orientation, if you will, particularly for our new council members, on the 4 cost centers and basically their functions.
You can switch that way. So first, our transportation program is available to any South Kingstown resident who's age 60 or older, free of charge to the center and back home for lunch or activities. We do a daily run. We let the people know what time they're going to be picked up. The bus always leaves around 10 of 1 to 1 o'clock to get everybody back home at the end of the day. We do also do non-medical transportation for South Kingstown residents only. There's a 50-cent fee per trip for non-medical things such as the grocery store, pharmacies, banking. Stay primarily in South Kingstown except for the Stop and Shop Plaza. If money is a problem, we do not, it's not required. We also sell bus passes for people for convenience. Our operational budget covers costs of personnel and year-round service of the senior van, including the fuel and the maintenance. Again, our transportation is just for South Kingstown residents. We also transport, if needed, anyone underage with a documented disability to the center only for lunch, because our congregate nutrition program is a federally funded program for those 60 years or older and those with a documented disability. They do need to show us their disability paperwork, and they can come to the center for lunch, even if they're under 60. Not necessarily participate in the activities, which you need to be 60 for, but the lunch. So that's transportation. Our nutrition program provides daily, low-cost, nutritionally balanced meals, along with education about the meals. It provides, the biggest part, I really believe, also it provides is socialization for these people. We have found that the lunch program, many of those people who attend our lunch, really that's the only thing they do attend in the center. They come at 10, they read the newspaper, maybe they play a game of cards, but the lunch is their primary focus of coming to the center. As Terry said, the number has dropped. That's a national issue right now, not just a South Kingstown issue. We do have meetings about how that congregate nutrition program needs to change over the upcoming years. People are aging out of the program. They're moving to senior nursing homes, facilities, and we're just not replacing their meals with people in the environment now because they're not interested in that. So there's a lot of talk out there about doing takeout stuff and whatnot, but that's out of our hands because it's a federal program.
Now, did you say that there is an age limit as to, you said they're aging out of this?
They're aging out in that they can't get on the bus safely.
Okay.
They can't. You need to be independent, completely independent, to be at the senior center. So a lot of people, when memory problems occur or health problems, we've had many transfers over to the adult daycare, mostly because of memory and safety issues at the senior center, because there aren't reminders at the senior center. We don't necessarily know that you came in the center any more than we would know if you went into a library. You're an independent person there. So as people are aging out, so to speak, we're not getting people filling in those spots. We're operating in partnership with Rhode Island Division of Elderly Affairs. West Bay Community Action holds the Congregate Nutrition Grant, and our catering is done through Encore Catering. As Terry mentioned, we are supported by the town of Narragansett. The suggested donation is $3 a day for a meal. Again, we do not go after anybody for meals. It's completely anonymous. They put the money into a box. We have no idea who gives what. And if a senior has someone who is not 60 years of age or is not under 60 and disabled, they can order a meal for $6. Our Adult Day Services is a state-licensed comprehensive program designed to meet the medical, social, and psychological needs of the frail and or disabled senior. We have professional staff there, including a registered nurse, certified nursing aides, activity coordinator, a case manager, who all provide, care and supervision for the clients or the participants. It includes activities which enrich the lives of our members, improves self-esteem, promotes feelings of self-worth. We serve and are supported by the towns of Narragansett and North Kingstown at a proportional rate, as Terry explained, based on number of service days. Many of our members at the adult day have private transportation, or they're getting their transportation through the new MTM, which you've probably heard about in the news. We are not having any problems, knock on wood, anymore with that. For our daycare, they kept a lot of the same drivers for our people, which is very important for continuity. So, so far we've been okay with that. Yep.
I'll just ask you a question about the adult day service. What capacity is the program at?
We average about 15 people a day. We can have up to 20. It fluctuates due to, again, people when they leave the adult day, a lot are going to nursing facilities because they're getting to be too much, mostly with their memory issues, to be at home safely. We can have up to 20 a day. Some days we have up to 18, 19, some days are full, but the average is about 15. It does fluctuate due to families take their loved ones to Florida a lot for the winter and then bring them back here for summer months. So we have a lot of waxing and waning, but we do see the rise is the daily rate seems to be getting a little bit higher. As we've noticed in past years, we're getting a lot of people at the older end, and so their stays aren't necessarily for 5 or 6 years, but maybe a year or two, and that's due to care at home and the whole keeping our seniors at home with home care and whatnot.
Mr. President, if I may. Sue, an important feature of this program, at least in terms of revenues, is that there are third-party payments.
Correct.
What does this program cost South Kingstown taxpayers to run?
Okay.
That's fine.
So the way this program is broken out is that there is a reimbursement through Medicaid and Medicare. We have folks who are on neighborhood health plan. The total cost of the program, the budget for the program, is $362,785. The net cost for the communities who are involved after all payments have been received will be $116,146. Of that, that amount, it's broken out among the three communities based on the actual activity or the number of days that their residents have received in service. So for South Kingstown, 47.7% of the days that were provided in the last year's snapshot were for South Kingstown residents. So that's the amount. It's 47.7% of the 116,000. So we're at 55,489 that it'll cost from the general fund for the adult day program. Narragansett would be $26,530, and North Kingstown is at $34,127. So there is the contribution level that it's relatively level for South Kingstown this year, just based on the makeup of our client base last year. What I will say is that the reimbursement rates have gone up. I would also note that this budget does call for an increase in the daily rates for private pay individuals. So we are increasing based on the operational cost of the program, but without the support of these three communities, the program could be cost prohibitive. It's about $108 a day is the per client for what it would cost if we did not have any municipal support.
The point I would make about that is the program doesn't pay for itself entirely, but it's not the big number that you see on the page in the budget.
The other thing to keep in mind too is that you see it as 20 people a day, say, but it almost at least add 2 to 4 more people to that number that it actually affects of town people, because they're living with family in town that is letting them be able to get to work, so it's not just the 20 people that we have in the building, it's the families that are affected by their person that needs this care too. So doesn't show up in the stats, but it does affect a lot of other people just besides the ones that are in the building. So to the senior center effect, our senior center, the senior center offers information about available services and activities, as well as other local provider agencies designed to support independence, enhance quality of life, promote optimal aging. We have everything from our information and referral specialists to Italian, to Zumba, to Pilates, Tai Chi. We have numerous programs going on. Majority of them are free. We try to keep that so not to be prohibitive to people and to exclude any who can't afford any of the activities. We have a few classes, exercise classes that we do charge for, but that's it. The Senior Center houses the senior nutrition and the transportation programs. We do health promotions, we do screenings, a lot of volunteer opportunities, some case management. We also work with the case manager who's at the adult day if we have certain questions that she can help with, educational programs. It goes on and on. We're partially funded by the State of Rhode Island Division of Elderly Affairs, and through a community service grant. We're always trying to find grants to write to support different programming that doesn't necessarily add to the bottom line, but that gets additional programming into the center that we don't have to, have the cost of.
So what this slide basically shows you is the total contribution from the municipalities. It's 64% of the total operating budget. The top half of the table shows the total cost of the program, and the bottom half shows the contributions broken out by town. It's just something to note, so you realize that SK is not contributing almost $1 million. It's less than half of the total operating cost of the entire senior services program. And as you can see, that the general fund transfer that is being proposed is 47.3% of the total operating budget for FY 19-20. And what I would say, kind of to wrap up this budget, is that opportunities for seniors in the community expand beyond the senior center. I know there were some comments and good input last night in regards to expanding senior programming. We do have senior programs through the Guild program. We have, the rec center has become a great asset and kind of arm of the senior center in terms of daytime hours when kids are in school. The building is used for walking, for pickleball, which is kind of the new craze of retirees. So, there's a lot in terms of our infrastructure being able to support senior programming beyond the four walls of the senior center. So I would throw that out there just so that the council knows and the community knows that there's a lot of other activities available to seniors in the community beyond the host of services at the senior center.
Just one more thing, too. When you look at the stats, the numbers for new members for the year and total members, those do not include the 1,000+ people that walk through the doors to see our information specialist. Many of those become members after they've walked in because they've gotten our information, but the majority of the people that walk in to get those services are not yet members of the center. So that's another 1,200 people that are going through there that aren't counted for on that, but are potential members.
Any questions? Thank you. It's a great program that you run. Thank you.
I'm still up. Moving on to the Guild. As you know, the Guild is a self-sufficient fund. Our community is extremely fortunate to have the Guild. I don't think there's another community in the state that has something like that. We're supported by trust income and a combination of trust income and program revenue. And this, for the FY 19-20 year, our budget is relatively flat. That's partially due to the adjustment of having shifted programming over to the rec center, and we're in the process of kind of adjusting to a new way of offering the Guild for whether it's passive recreation, cultural arts programs, or rental of the facility. So that's one of the reasons why you see the budget is pretty level funded at this point. Administration and maintenance, it's about a little over half of the budget, and there's a 2.7% increase in this area. Nothing out of the ordinary. It basically helps to operate the building in terms of general maintenance and also admin. Staff is covered. Half the staff is covered through the Guild. The personnel lines fund 50% of, I think it's 6 employees. The general fund and the Guild fund split that cost. We've got our front desk budget, which is at $25,806. That's decreased by 9.2%. That's partially due to the fact that we're not open on weekends any longer because the rec center is the rec facility that's open on weekends, and we're not taking in the revenue or have the level of activity that we had in the fitness room, which is on the basement level. Again, that's moved over to the rec center. But essentially, we staff the front desk, customer service based, take registrations. It's an administrative need at the Guild because we have people coming and going regularly on a daily basis, morning, noon, and night. Our music program, most of our programming is based on use of independent contractors, and we go through adjustments every year based on the previous year, and we're looking at a 6% decrease. It fluctuates depending on who we have for instructors. They come and go. We have a great core group of music instructors. Some years we have 2 or 3 more instructors that we're able to realize a higher revenue, but we're calling for a 6% decrease on the music side. It's a very robust program. Again, it's pretty unique in that most recreation programs do not offer music. Our arts program is showing a bit of an increase. Again, that's kind of level. We've budgeted out what we feel is an accurate look at where we'll be in 1920. Again, we have lots of different instructors. We have a very robust pottery program that we run, and we run lots of arts and theater camps in the summer season. So that's just a bit of an increase there. Youth programming, we're seeing the same thing. That is, generally speaking, we do our school vacation camps at the Guild. We have other activities and programs, preschool programs, things like that take place at the Guild as well. But the biggest is the school vacation camps in April and February, which will probably go away next year because there's no February vacation. I don't think so. So that's youth programming. This is kind of the breakout, similar to what? That's okay. Youth programs, you'll see we've got camps, holiday events, general rec programs. Again, we drill down to this level so that you can get a look at, what we're planning for in the next year. Our adult leisure program, we're showing a bit of a decrease as well. Some of that's partially due to some of our programming having been shifted to the to the rec center. But again, we're constantly recruiting independent contractors, looking for creative, interesting program opportunities for not only our community's youth, but also our adults. So at this point, we're seeing about an 8% decrease in that cost center. And then we have travel, which is, I think in the budget, it's called seniors. This is our day trip program. This is a very popular program. This is one of the programs that I was mentioning before, that there are other opportunities besides the senior center in terms of what seniors can do. Trips to New York, Vermont, different Red Sox, Celtics, those types of things. We're showing a 5% increase. And the other thing I would mention about any of these program cost centers is that if the programs don't run, we don't lose money because we just eliminate the program. So we don't pay staff, we don't take revenue, so we don't have any expenses. It all depends on what we have going. But this is based on previous year's experience. So we're looking at a 5% increase for the trip program. Just quickly, this is the total program revenue. You'll see it's down by about almost $11,000. Again, some adjustments. It could be that we end up, taking on more music instructors or over the course of the year, and it could fluctuate. But this is the best information that we have, so we're conservative in how we present this. So $323,000 of the total revenue comes from programming. And the balance of the revenue comes from trust fund, reinvested capital, and investment income, $457,400. Are there any questions on the Guild budget? Okay, on to the rec center budget. We have just over a 9% proposed increase for the operating budget of the rec center. We've just completed one full cycle for that budget. We're looking at a 3.2% increase in the general fund transfer. We're showing 24% increase in the athletic program revenue, which I'll show you a little bit. I'll show you in a little bit. 26% increase in our rental income. The increase is partially due to a new proposed part-time building maintenance technician. Originally, we had one full-time and two part-time technicians. Because of the number of hours that were open, there's a gap in where there is a building maintenance person on. Because of the level of activity we are seeing now, we're really in need of that another building maintenance person to ensure that the building is kept clean and safe. And there's a lot of moving parts in terms of changing up the building for different activities, whether a curtain needs to be dropped or a volleyball net needs to be set up or a room needs to be broken down. So we're really in need of a building maintenance person on just about every minute that we're open. And on the revenue side, we are proposing a slight increase in the non-resident fees. We looked very closely at how we were going to try to hold the line in terms of what we thought was reasonable for a general fund transfer for this particular program. And so we're starting with looking at non-resident, impact on non-resident fees rather than residents, since they're paying through their tax support. So here's the detail on the athletic programs that are funded and operate out of the rec center. And you can see that we run a total of, let's see, $139,586 in terms of revenue that comes in. Those are through self-support classes, program fees, and a little bit of sponsorship dollars. But the primary program here are some of the camps in the summertime. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Champs Camp. That's a big program that we run, and the youth basketball, the rec program, is our other anchor program for the rec center. So that, again, we drill down, we do the budgets for these specific programs so that we have something to work with here. And this is just a comparison from this year to FY19. You'll see that we're heading in the right direction in terms of revenue. We're increasing our rental revenue for next year. We're showing an increase in our program revenue, and we're decreasing what the need is from the general fund from 68% down to 64.6%. So we are heading in the right direction in terms of minimizing any impact beyond what we had projected when this building was planned, and I thought that was important to show you. Are there any questions on the rec center or any of the recreation funds?
Terry, I think I just have one question on the rec center. Personnel FTEs of 2.9, is that on the
So that's the equivalent of, we have, I have to go look in we have a full-time manager. We have our athletic supervisor is funded at 50%, not full because he has outdoor programs and that's in the general fund. And then we have a full-time building maintenance person. So that's, and then we have two part-time building maintenance as well. So two, is that right, Trish?
Well, part of it is people's salaries and benefits are prorated over the amount of time that they're spending in each fund. So there could be a portion of Terry's salary that might be allocated, and then part of our recreation staff, our athletic staff, is allocated to this fund as well. So we do a lot of proration. At the beginning of the year when we start personnel development, Terry is always looking at how she can reallocate and where is she spending the most of her time. So then we can move off some of those salaries and benefits to some of the special revenue funds. Right. So that's where we get sometimes the 2.9, 2.7, 2.6.
Right, so I get we do that to be sort of more accurate in our
Right.
reporting, but you can't really staff that building with 2.9 FTEs, right? Not all those hours. I mean, I think
No.
summertime's over 100 hours it's open.
Yeah, the operation of the building weekly,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't, so that
But we don't
doesn't
capture
include the
part-time
part-time.
in the full-time FTE. So I think that's the difference.
So
some
all of the front desk
part-
people are
yeah.
not included in that.
Okay.
So we have pooled positions that cover some of those hours that aren't covered by full-timers, full-time people, but they're pooled, so we don't capture them in the FTE count.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is the Public Services Division, water, wastewater, and solid waste, for which John has the pleasure of overseeing. So within the general fund budget is the Public Services Division. This department is funded in tax support of $3.2 million. The proposed budgeted expenditures are increasing 4%. Of the 4%, 7.2% is an increase in wages. What is making up a majority of that increase is the new position. We're budgeting for 2020 an arborist position with family benefits. We're seeing an uptick in the liabilities, property liabilities with some trees, which I know John will talk about later on. We're seeing an increase in benefits of 4.7%. Again, contractual increases plus the new addition of the arborist. The proposed budgeted revenues, John's division, Public Services, generates about $19,000 in revenues. This is an increase of $1,000 over the current year. These are just permits and licenses, inspection fees, and soil erosion fees. Yeah,
Can I go through each division, or is that easier?
yeah, sure.
Trying to make it consistent, so.
It's the engineer in him.
So I'm going to try to keep this high level. I don't have any visuals, although I thank Trish for taking a picture of our dump truck up at the highway.
That's the one Paul wants.
We got to go to yellow instead of red. So just quickly, engineering, we've pretty much level funded it this year, other than the personnel and benefit expenditures. So there really is no increase proposed for engineering from the current fiscal year, other than just, and Rich Bourbonnais is here. He oversees the engineering division. Rich is the town engineer. Other than, our standard road projects, stone ceiling, which we go out to bid for, we do have a rather large project that we're getting ready to issue an RFP for. That's the comprehensive asset management software. So that, which all departments are going to be able to use to manage all our assets. Right now we have individual compartmentalized softwares. We're going to try to combine that all into one. That's going to put some additional demands on the administrative staff in-house, but we think we'll be able to do that. Highway Division is headed by Paul Ferrandi. He's here, the highway superintendent. Again, as Trish indicated, we're trying to incrementally work into an arborist program, primarily for liability reasons. We've had a number of claims over the past few years for trees that, looked healthy, but unbeknownst to us weren't, and actually some trees that we were maintaining in the past but had a catastrophic failure. So we've got to get into a more proactive program as far as maintaining some of the town trees. So again, what we're proposing for the upcoming year is an arborist, plus in the capital budget we have the arborist truck. Other than that, we've pretty much tried to level fund the highway division again for this year. Just quickly, professional services, that one account for Paul's budget is probably bigger than some departments, about $410,000. Of that number, about $210,000 is dedicated to stone ceiling program, $50,000 for crack sealing, about $29,000 for road striping. We do have money in there for sidewalk replacement, but that always seems to get robbed if we're short on the snowfall in the winter budget. And we've got about $30,000 for catch basin cleaning, for third-party catch basin cleaning. And just for the council's edification, the current storm budget, I just want to, everybody's asking, we've got $219,000 budgeted this year. We were doing really well up until about a couple of weeks ago. We spent about 63%, or about $138,000, and we've got about 37% left, or about $80,000. So I think this is going to be one of the few years that I can recall. I think we're going to end up in the black. I mean, we're getting into the, knock on wood. Yeah, I agree. Tree warden, again, level funded for tree warden. Engineering oversees the tree warden budget. No increases proposed for that, although, again, we've spent a lot of money for tree removals, and what we typically do is if we find a tree that needs to be removed, we first go to grid. And if that tree is a threat to their utilities, they will take it down for us. They have literally saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past few years taking down trees. And then we go out to bid once a year or twice a year, depending upon funding, for our own contract, and that work is ongoing right now. Streetlights, again, we're waiting on, the council may recall, Johnston, I believe, sued RIDOT successfully to take over streetlights. Right now, all communities pay for streetlights on both state roads and town roads. Johnston took exception to that after many years, sued the state and was successful, and now RIDOT is taking over the streetlights on state roads in Johnston. Town Solicitor Osillo has also made a similar request to RIDOT. We're waiting for an answer. In South Kingston, it's not a small number. 30% of our streetlights are on state roads. So with a street lighting budget of about $195,000, that's $57,000 a year. If we can get RIDOT to take over state road streetlights, and it's also going to save us on the LED conversion component, probably about another $150,000 when we go to convert the streetlights. So the problem we have with this is we have to buy the streetlights before we do the conversion. It's a requirement of grid in the PUC. We don't want to buy the streetlights only to find out then that hopefully RIDOT will take them over. So we're on hold with Siemens. The council may recall you awarded a contract to Siemens for the LED conversion. That's on hold until this issue gets resolved. And I spoke to Grid as recent as today, and they still don't have an answer for us. So that's the general fund in a nutshell. So I don't know if the council has any specific questions I can answer.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the enterprise funds. Enterprise funds do not receive any tax appropriation. So the water fund this year is up 0.51%. They're seeing a 0.6%, very small increases, minimal increases in all of the enterprise funds this year. Small increase in wages over the current year, which is also offset by, we had budgeted for a payout for accrued vacation leave time based on pending potential retirement. We've decreased that amount this year. Benefits is down 10.6%. Capital overlay is up 16.5%, and that's related to depreciation expense recognized in their operating budget. The proposed revenue is $1.1 million, which is an increase of $5,577. This is generated through metered sales and an increase in investment income.
So some good news and bad news with the water fund. The good news is the current rate base supports the expenditures. The bad news is there is a little bit of uncertainty. One of them is the non-operating revenue from the cell antennas on both of the water tanks. Nextel and T-Mobile merged earlier in 2018. So I suspect there may be the potential both T-Mobile and Nextel or Sprint are on the same tanks. So when T-Mobile and Metro PCS merged a couple of years ago, they didn't need duplicate facilities, so some of those disappeared. I suspect that may happen in 2019. I don't know. I would think we would have heard by now, but it's unusual if it's going to be owned by one company, to have duplicate facilities on each tank. So that's a potential loss of revenue. We are in the process. We should be out to bid in the next couple months for wholesale meter replacements for the water system, to change out the meters that were installed back in 2008. The current rate base did capture Suez's rate increase that was authorized by the PUC back in October. The wholesale rate went up about 9.4%, so the existing rate base was able to absorb that, and the wholesale expenditure to Suez is about 20% of the budget. So even though that number is rather large, the existing rate base was able to cover that. The only thing that still potentially is out there with Suez, this is the first time, I think I may have indicated this before the council, the PUC granted Suez what's called a DISC, and this is the first time they've done it in the state, which is a Distribution System Infrastructure Charge. That's what the acronym stands for. So that allows Suez each year up to an increase of up to 2.5% if they make distribution system charges without going back to the PUC for a full rate filing. So once they get up to a sum total of 7.5%, then they'd have to go back for a full rate filing to increase. They can't go above 7.5%. So theoretically, they could have 3 years of 2.5% in a row, and then that would be it. They wouldn't get any more until they went back for full rate filing. Or they may have 1 year of 2.5% and then 0.0, but whenever they get up to the sum total of 7.5%, then they'd have to go back for a rate filing. So because 25% of the budget is the wholesale payments to Suez, that could have an impact on us. So I carried 2.5% in the budget increase for Suez just to be conservative. And again, the existing rate base covers that cost. Any questions on the water fund?
So moving on to the wastewater fund, again, self-supporting. This is an enterprise fund. The wastewater fund is projecting a decrease of 11%. Wages make up 3.9% of an increase, and the capital outlay is actually a decrease of 46%. And this is associated with the PAYGO portion of the CIP. The proposed budgeted revenues are $4,192,000, a decrease of $395,000. Investment income is up $10,000, and the regional partner contribution is recognizing a reduction of $412,000 due to the reduction in the PAYGO portion of the capital.
So wastewater, no new staff anticipated for the upcoming fiscal year. Similar to the water fund, enterprise fund, current rate base is adequate for needed expenditures. Similar capital budget, all the cost centers for wastewater are done and paid by regional partners based upon their flow. So general plant operations and the solids portion of the wastewater, that's split between South Kingston, Narragansett, URI. South Kingston picks up 38%, Narragansett's 44%, and URI 17%. Similarly, Silver Lake Pump Station, only South Kingston URI flow goes through there. Our flow is 68%, URI is 32%. Kingston Pump Station, 12%, South Kingston, the lion's share is URI is at 87%. So we're likely going to be out to bid for replacing the force main. We had a force main leak on 138 about 3 weeks ago. Kathy Perez is here, the wastewater superintendent. So we're trying to finalize that design and get approval by DEM. So that project is going to be significant, at least 7 figures, $1 million. So for purposes of discussion, if it was $1 million, URI'd pick up $870,000. We'd pick up $120 because 80% of the flow through that is URIs. Any questions on wastewater?
And finally, the solid waste fund, no tax support. The proposed expenditure budget is going up 0.2%. Wages are up 3.9% due to contractual obligations. Benefits are up 4.6%, and capital outlay has a decrease of 7.1%, and this is due to depreciation expense being less than the prior year. The proposed budgeted revenues are $820,000, which is a minor increase of $800. And those are associated, the revenues here are associated with transfer station, mainly transfer station rental, and it's offset by hauler licenses.
So again, solid waste funds, similarly other enterprise funds, no proposed changes in the tag rates. The other miscellaneous mattresses, batteries, those are all set by what the contractor has to pay to get rid of those items. A couple things of concern is we do have a solid waste contract with Resource Recovery through June 30th of this year. They are in the process of revamping that contract for 2 years. One of the things they want to do is cut out the tip fee rebate for us. That's about $12,000 in revenue a year. I think we've successfully negotiated or got them to agree to keep it for next year, but I tend to believe that may disappear for the following year, so we're good for the upcoming fiscal year, but the year after, I think we're going to see a $12,000 loss in the tip fee rebate from Resource Recovery. The transfer station privatization contract is good through June 30th of 2020. We're going to have to decide prior to that if we bid it or try to negotiate an extension with the existing contractor. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of companies out there that do that type of work. And if any of the council members have been to the transfer station recently, I mean, they did a wonderful job. I can't say enough. They really did a fantastic job doing the upgrades up there, and a lot of the complaints we have gone away. It's much more efficient than it was before. We're still doing quite well with our diversion rates. Town-wide, we're about 41.5% just on the single-stream recyclables. In the overall diversion rate, we're up to about 51.3%. We're still dealing through legal counsel with, we have a couple recalcitrant private haulers we're trying to still deal with to get them on board with what they're supposed to be doing. But I think all in all, our diversion rates are, some of the highest in the state, and it's been a very successful program.
John, I just have a comment for you. I think for every complaint you folks were getting on the solid waste, I was getting 3.
Oh, 3.
They would drive from the transfer station to my store.
Yeah.
Give me their complaint. It's down to 0. You're absolutely right.
On the weekends, it's like a pilgrimage to Mecca going to the transfer station. It's like going to the landfill. But yeah, it's really. I mean, I just can't say enough. I mean, it's especially rewarding because that site is extremely constrained with wetlands. It's essentially a peninsula surrounded with wetlands. So I've been to Wesley's. They just have tons of real estate. We don't have that luxury. So we fit a lot of services in a very small area. It really came out nice. And all the more reason that if I can try to negotiate an extension with that contractor, I think we would be much better off.
And the recycling rate is very impressive.
Yep. Laura Pointex, our recycling coordinator, she works hard to, she tries to grab every recyclable ton she can get her hands on.
So, John, I was there not too long ago, and I noticed a different name, so I asked the question. I think they said Link was purchased by another company.
Link was purchased by Waste Connections. I think Waste Connections is the third largest waste management company in the country. So it's Waste Connections is the parent company now, but it still has Link Environmental as their name.
Dump is one of the favorite places for my children to go. From time to time, maybe there's opportunity to synergize with the Parks and Rec Department, create some programs there.
And of course, everybody passes the solar farm on the way in, which is running very nicely.
John, can I ask you kind of a related but unrelated question, and you might know the question that's coming. One of the complaints I get a lot is our issue with private roads, but not really private roads, because I know private roads that are not traversed by many, it's not a huge deal. It's those private roads that seem to be in a neighborhood, but yet are private, but everyone tends to use them, that are kind of deteriorating. And the issue that you have there is that you have people who live there who don't want to contribute to maintaining that, and it becomes a problem.
Yep. So it's a problem town-wide with private roads. Typically, and they'll call my office and say, what are your suggestions? And my answer is, if there's a community of interest for everybody to get together, create some type of HOA with, nominal fees to at least grade them and, bring in some processed gravel periodically. And, somebody's gung-ho, they're leading up the light brigade, they try to get everybody, and they do originally, and then the numbers start coming in. So what happens is, initially, they'll probably get 90% of the property owners that abut the road saying, okay, I'm all for it. And then it starts to dwindle, and it gets down to like 10%, and then it falls apart. So there is a process for the town to accept private roads. It's not inexpensive, so the first thing is they would need to get a Class 1 survey and then monument all the property corners of what the right-of-way is proposed for dedication. They'd have to give us a general rate to drain for each property, because of what is going on private property now, if we take it over, we don't want somebody saying, hey, get your water off town road, off our property. And they'd have to, upgrade the road to town standards, which is obviously the most expensive part of it. So there is a process for it, but it's not cheap. So they either have that option, or trying to band together, if there's a community of interest, to, get their fellow neighbors to keep the roads upgraded.
Right. And then there's some streets, like today, Rob had mentioned to me that he reached out to you regarding that complaint on Alder.
So Alder,
I wasn't aware that the street was actually in Charleston.
the entire right-of-way, the travel way, is in the town of Charleston. In Charleston, some of the roads that surround Alder, the people did, Charleston has a similar process for accepting the roads, and those people did. They went through the process of getting the road accepted by Charleston. Again, I've talked to many people over the years about Alder, and I think actually in Charleston they have it in the general laws, the process, whereas is more informal. And again, it falls apart. Somebody leads the light brigade and they want to plow ahead with it, and then by the time they get done, it just falls apart. So, I mean, if you live on a private road, hopefully when you purchased the property or you acquired it through inheritance, you knew at that point it's your responsibility to maintain the roadway.
Yeah, my concern is mostly with older folks that, have lived there for a long time, now might be widowed as an example, and then, are concerned about emergency vehicle access.
So again, whether it's a private road, I know like up on the foothills of Matunic, we've got just single driveways that are thousands of feet long. So again, if you're elderly or if you have health issues and you need emergency services, to me, it's incumbent upon that property to make sure you have proper things in place to keep the road passable. It's a difficult situation. I mean, I don't have enough.
Right.
I wish I had more money for our roads, never mind.
Right. It's amazing because when we looked at our numbers yesterday, we're not paving nearly enough or repairing nearly enough roads. I think if we
$10 million a year and it's not enough.
Right.
I mean, but we're so much farther ahead than other communities. I mean, I think we've done either reconstructed or overlaid. I think we're over 35% at this point. I don't know of any other community that's got that much done, and that's only since 2000.
Right.
So but it's never enough money.
So how can we get more money? Meaning,
Give us more money.
There's no help from the state.
It's a balance of,
Right.
Services and affordability. I mean, we could certainly do more. I could pave 20 miles of road a year, but
if we're lucky, the arborist will discover that money does in fact grow on trees.
well, we're looking hard for that tree. We haven't found it yet.
Well, speaking of trees, though, so this is a serious thing. We are living in a very, aging forest, and it's creating problems for us, and we need to address it. So I think the arborist is the first step, but I think it's going to be bigger than just, one arborist.
Again, what we're looking at is one this year, and I'll be quite honest, we're going to need one next year. So, the following year, because I have to have somebody working a crew. So if I only get one now, I'm robbing from somebody who's out, street sweeping or road grading or roadside mowing. So we've got to do something with the trees. And I look at it, my analogy is like the Newport Bridge. Whenever we get through the town, we're going to have to go back and start over again. It's like painting the Newport Bridge. So, but it's going to take us a while to get there, but at least we're trying to go in the right direction.
And the program can, sort of be shaped as we go. As we are organized right now, the program has largely been around private contractors and the tree warden, the service that the tree warden provides. We can see ourselves migrating to a more internal, in-house service fairly easily without a substantial change in the dollar amounts. We do spend quite a bit on tree removal, and in the future, that number is going to go up. If we bring the folks in-house, we're going to have expenses. It's not free, but it's work that needs to be done, and it's work that we would not then be contracting out.
And one last quick question regarding trees. What is the rule in terms of trying to figure out if a tree is on your property or if it's on town property?
So for new roads, and I say new roads meaning from, let's say, the 70s on, typically the center of the yellow stripe on the road is the center of the pavement, is the center of the roadway. The older roads in town, Curtis Corner, Schoolhouse, the right-of-way meanders, the width meanders, and the pavement meanders. In fact, we had one individual up on Curtis Corner Road a number of years ago, took down a town tree. We sent him an NOV. This tree, literally, the base of the root ball was at the edge of pavement. He sent me a survey. That tree was on his property. So you can't, with the older roads in town, we send my staff out to, if somebody puts in a request for a tree to be removed, it's not always on the town right away. It's the older roads, there's nothing uniform. The newer roads aren't that way. The newer roads are right on the money, but the older roads, we have to go out on a case by case and take a look at each one of them. So stone walls are a good, means of old colonial, means of where the demarcation is for property lines. We look for monumentation, iron pipes. We look for any type of survey control we can find out in the field. Sometimes we can't always find it.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I was asking that question because a property owner might take down a tree thinking it's theirs, but it falls on the town property, and then there are certain rules they need to follow.
What was the question again?
There are certain rules I believe that folks need to follow if there's a tree on the town right away.
Correct. They have to file a permit.
Right.
And then Bill Wallace, the tree warden, reviews that permit. And my position's been if it's our tree and it's diseased or dying, it's not the property owner's responsibility to pay to get down, it's ours. So we do that. The applications that Bill sees not associated with that, and it's pretty few and far between, is somebody's got a satellite dish, a solar panel.
Yeah.
So Bill he's very conservative, he's very knowledgeable, but his job is to protect the trees. So we try to work with property owners that have those requests to take down healthy trees or to trim healthy trees for something that, again, like a solar panel or a satellite dish. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I'll say just two more things about the arborist and the program as we're sort of envisioning it growing. John's focus is very keenly on liability because that has been the driver to date. We do recognize, however, that street trees and trees in general are an important quality of life issue here in South Kingstown. So another aspect of it is simply managing the forest. It's making sure that we're protecting the trees from pests. It's making sure that we're pruning. It's making sure that we're working with the Parks Department to address issues as they may arise on parkland. It's not just a matter of going through the town roads and cutting everything down because it might fall on something. It is important for us to deal with liability, recognize it, the quality of life aspect to this.
Thank you, John.
All right, any concluding comments from you, Rob?
They're incredible, aren't they? We've got an amazing staff. They look for every opportunity to shift the burden away from the taxpayers. They look for every opportunity to generate revenue in a fair way when it can be passed on to the users. And they manage their programs tightly. So I hope the council recognizes what we've seen tonight, which I would argue is illustrative of all of the departments here in South Kingstown, is a manifestation of just good management. We have a great crew, and we have folks who recognize that the people who we work for are not just customers, they're the owners of the company. They're the folks we work for. That's what I got.
Any comments up here at the council table? If not, I'll open the floor to public comment. If there's any out there, please just come to the podium, state your name for the record.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, Emily Comiskey. This is a little bit rogue because it's not about trees or wastewater or the senior center, but I did want to address all of you because I will be away for my parents' joint 60th birthday trip next week during the time when we normally would have a chance to converse about the school committee budget. So I hope that's okay that I'm talking about something off of the agenda. Do you want me to ask permission, or is that okay with you all? Okay, and I will keep it pretty short. Because I think most of you pretty much know where we have landed. But first of all, thank you for all that you do. When I read your report for the budget, at first when I saw the arborist and the bucket truck, I thought, wow, that could equal some of the guidance counselors and so forth that we're fighting for. But then I thought, but I also don't want my grandma to get hit in the head by a big oak branch, or my kids to get hit by a weeping willow at the Guild. So I think that you guys are doing a great job managing the needs of everybody. And yes, there's a lot of pickleball going on. I run at the rec center almost every day, and that place is packed. So anyhow, I'm here tonight, honestly, because, as I said, I won't be here next Wednesday. And I wanted to have a chance to just give you my point of view of how we got to where we are, and what we're currently looking at and where we're going. So last year, the town council really generously gave us a property tax transfer, gave the school committee a property tax transfer of 2.9%. And I keep kind of hearing around town that the school committee asks every year for more and more and more. And this year, we are down to 2.5. We're not asking for 2.9, and we're not asking for more. And we really did due diligence in whittling this down to exactly where the breaking point was of any further cuts for this upcoming budget season will be detrimental to the educational outcomes for our learners. I honestly believe that. We worked really, really hard, asked a lot of questions. I think that was made abundantly clear as it was sort of painful to watch the process, and extra meetings added on and so forth. But we asked questions that hadn't been asked. We got the information all put in writing. It's all available on board docs for everybody to see what really the detailed and really a transparent breakdown of what the different programs look like. So I think we did a really good job of that, and that we asked a lot of questions to get a comprehensive picture of where we are. So the cuts that have been made are quite deep. I remember in years back coming at my first meeting and saying, please don't cut, a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 to CARES. That's a really important program. And I made a promise at that time to continue to follow the budget and to continue to follow the district and make sure that we were spending our taxpayers' money responsibly at that time. And that was several years ago now. And I believe I've continued to follow through on that promise. We've cut CARES. We've cut SMILE. We cut half of our preschool coordinator position, which is in our strategic plan to grow that program. We cut half of our literacy director, which I think speaks volumes. We've cut money to sports programs. We've cut technology coaches. who, it may not sound like a big deal, but we're looking to increase our test scores, which are done electronically, and our teachers need to all be trained in how to train our students to better use technology. We just cut the coach. We cut our social emotional coordinator position. As a maternal child health nurse, that killed me. I fought hard for that last year to be added into the budget, as I think that's an essential program. It's not just choose love. There's a lot that goes into that. And Mrs. Murphy, who is running that program, is a long-time teacher in the district. She knows her stuff. She's researched, and she's doing amazing things. That was very difficult to have to make that decision. And I can go on and on, but if we have to make any further cuts, what we'll be eliminating are teacher assistants who are at the forefront of keeping our students safe every single day. We'll have to cut our janitorial staff, our custodial staff. They're at the forefront of making sure that our students remain healthy. We'll be cutting guidance counselors, and we'll be cutting our student assistance counselors. Our student assistance counselors, just in case you don't recognize what the difference is, because I even sometimes am like, what's the difference between a guidance and a student assistance counselor? The student assistance counselors are like Mr. Patron, some of you may recognize from when your kids were in school. He's been there a million years. He works on substance abuse prevention. Here we are in the middle of an opioid crisis, and could be potentially forced to cut our substance abuse prevention counselor. Well, not him in particular, but positions like that. We've already been discussing what can we do so that we are not in this reactionary position again next year. We can't continue like this. As soon as the election occurred, we started discussions about looking at an early retirement and early separation agreement with our top step teachers, because it's very clear when you look at what part of the problem is of why we have such a higher per pupil expenditure is we have almost all top step teachers. We need to move away from that. We've created an incentive where there are, I believe at this point, over 20 or 25 teachers that have submitted for that. We will be able to, or the rest of the school committee will be able to give you the answer about what that cost analysis or cost savings analysis looks like next Tuesday's meeting. So that's a really exciting thought that we could move that around. We cut over 32 FTEs. We're looking and planning for a possible consolidation of our middle schools for September of 2020. We've been talking about that for the last couple of months, and it was very clear that we wouldn't have that we really didn't have proper time for planning, and also we wanted to make sure that we surveyed our teachers, our administrators, our parents, and the community to see what the safest, the most educationally sound place would be for our 8th graders to go, as we know they cannot fit 6th, 7th, and 8th in Broad Rock without any additions. So we are already in the planning of bringing 5th grade back and moving towards a consolidation for hopefully September of 2020. That's what we're working towards, and that was part of the reason of starting the DLI conversation that we had at our work session last week, because we need to know where we're going with DLI before we can move 5th grade back so that we avoid redistricting multiple times. We want to try to do that one time only. So I think you know a lot of, and then the final thing is we're encouraging to start now for planning for starting from the bottom up. Let's start with what we know we're moving towards: 4 elementary schools, pre-K through 5, 1 middle school, and 1 high school, and let's build from the bottom up and keep only what's absolutely essential, but let's keep what is really the foundation of our educational system here. We've always been known to have a great system. Further cuts than 2.5, honestly, will undermine the mission of our school and of our schools, and I honestly believe that. And I know you guys are balancing pickleball and trees and wastewater and all sorts of really amazing things. We live in a great community, and it's due to a lot of the due diligence that you guys are doing and that our town manager and everybody here in the town hall is doing to make sure that everybody's needs are met. But I really believe that the school committee is working hard to make sure that we're conscious of that. And I hope that next week after listening to our Tuesday's meeting, and then when you all have the chance to converse together, that you'll entertain the idea of going ahead and approving a 2.5. Thank you.
I want to just take it back to these incredible people. Jocelyn Luska, sorry. I lose my focus at times. I have been the benefit and the recipient of every single service spoken about today. And just as importantly, my clinical practice has as well. I frequently refer my most elderly and frail to the senior services program, to the daycare program, to the nutrition program. When we talk about social determinants of health for an entire community from cradle to grave, and we talk about clean water, clean air, safe roads, safe passages, snow removal, wastewater removal and management, we're talking about affecting everyone. 100% are affected by these incredible people who I haven't run the numbers, and I'm not you. You are amazing. I don't really know the portion of the budget that tonight's presentation takes up, but I'm probably going to send you an email and ask you, because they affect us all. Every one of us. I'm a huge proponent of Healthy People 2020. It's part of what I do for a living. And Bryant and I have talked a lot about healthy spaces by design and how we can economically, positively affect our community by having healthy people. As much as I appreciate every single thing that these incredible people do, if we could reduce their burden by increasing the health of our citizens through the programs, particularly that the Guild and the Rec Center offer, we will positively affect our economic bottom line. So I just want to thank them for their professionalism, for their budget, for the clean numbers that were presented tonight, for the neutral budget impact that many of the programs you heard about tonight have. And I just want to thank you. So I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate this opportunity tonight. It was a very good learning experience.
All right. Anybody going to jump up here? Any final comments from us here? All right. Very good. Well, I will adjourn the meeting here at 8:21. See you tomorrow night.
Whatever's left in this manual besides school.
Human service. It's going to take a while. Debt service is first, right?
I have the agenda. Oh yeah, human services outside agencies.